Welcome to Millennium Counseling Center's podcast, where each week we go in depth into all things mental health, addiction recovery, and being our healthiest and happiest self. Enjoy. This week's episode will be hosted by one of the many incredible therapists here at the Millennium Counseling Center. Please enjoy.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Dating in Your 20s. It's Amelia and Lilly. We're so happy to be recording again. I feel like we recorded in bulk for a really big period of time, and then Lilly went on an amazing safari vacation, and now we're back. We've been in our office, and it's finally summer in Chicago, which is just like the best feeling. We're just in high spirits today, recording on a Friday. This is great.
Yeah, exactly. Wait, I love that. That really captured the vibe. Be back. Happy to be chatting. And as always, would love to interact with anyone. So comment, follow us on TikTok, Dating in Your 20s, email us. Our emails are in the show notes. Yeah. But what are we talking about today, Amelia?
Well, it's so funny that we're like happy vibes. The world feels like our oyster. Everything's sunny and bright. And we're talking about conflict, which feels like a huge dichotomy. But I was doing some research this week for the podcast, and like we've thought about doing a episode on love languages, but that kind of feels like, I mean, most people know their love language. I feel like that's a really common thing. But recently, psychologists have been trying to formulate and finalize conflict languages because they realized a lot of people, specifically in romantic relationships, present and defend conflict very differently. But like we just don't know how to go about it because it just always feels conflict always makes us feel anxious. It always makes anyone, even if they're so great at it, their body internalizing it is not always great. So I'm really excited to talk about this to kind of go through what are conflict languages. Are you a fighter? Are you an avoider? Do you typically become a people pleaser? And also applying it when it comes to romance and just like this stage of life, like being in your 20s, because that kind of just already feels chaotic in itself.
Mm-hmm. Totally. I think that it's interesting too to talk about it in a relationship context because I think you sort of mentioned this too, but like we're still kind of like figuring out how we show up in relationships and conflict in relationships and maybe how you show up with your mom versus your best friend versus your partner can be really different. And again, it's like reflective self-awareness piece of recognizing like, oh, like how am I showing up in this relationship and in this connection? And again, it's not like having these answers and knowing like which one you are in every relationship is like needed or required, but it's more again that just like having the language and having the ability to think about it a little bit more if you want to. And again, just being curious about some of these things and asking yourself maybe some questions and looking a little bit deeper. Not to say that there's totally going to be solutions and answers with it, but it can kind of be kind of a launch pad to making sense to some bigger things.
Yeah, something Lily and I were talking about too before we started recording. We were just like talking about our notes. Is I think it's really important to emphasize like dating in your 20s means that you're fully in relationships before you've fully developed your own conflict skills, which feels so accurate for like me. Like when we were going over some of the research in these articles, I was like, oh my God, like am I handle conflict like I did when I was 5. Like, I still don't really know how I should go about this, and it's, like, especially in relationships, it feels really daunting because a lot of times you're going in already overthinking, wanting to make the other person happy, wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard. You're balancing all of this, and so I think this is, like, a good crash course maybe on those hidden ways that we handle conflict. And 2, I tell all of my clients this, like, this is the way I view therapy and this is the way I kind of view this podcast, like the take what you need, leave the rest. I think of therapy like going to a hardware store. You never go with the intention for someone to build something for you. You go with the intention to get the tools to do it yourself. And sometimes you find tools that work for you. And sometimes you find tools that you're like, that's not really what I need in this situation. But cool to know about. And so, like, if you're in a relationship right now and you feel like we're actually doing really well, we haven't gotten in a fight in a while and we can handle this, still good to know and be aware of these languages, how you go about conflict on the times where it does feel heated and does feel incredibly personal and
Mhm.
overwhelming.
Mhm. I think you touched on it a little bit too, but it's kind of something to spend a little bit time on here in the beginning, but, like, conflict styles are shaped by a lot of different things, right? Shaped by whether it be, like, a past relationship or maybe the care that you received growing up, family systems, trauma responses, all those types of things, so it also can kind of, like, in learning about or in putting more energy and effort into being curious about conflict styles, it can also kind of provide a little of a aha moment of like, "Oh, like, wow." And you can feel validated in how you're showing up because you can connect it to something that has maybe happened in the past and then just provides a little bit more context, which I love context. I think context helps and makes the world go round.
Yes, and I think it's also, like, important to note too, like, specifically in this age bracket. Wait, did you see someone commented on our TikTok and was
Oh,
like, "Are you gonna
no.
change this podcast title when you turn 30? Like,
Oh my
it's this age."
gosh.
I was like, "No, I'm probably still gonna wanna talk about being in my 20s." But I think specifically being in your 20s, this is such an emotionally vulnerable state. Whether you are, I mean, I feel like predominantly people like women listen to this podcast, but like no matter what, you are in a vulnerable state because you are often wanting to be chosen and validated and safe and seen, all of these things. And without the tools to have that and navigate needing those things, you're gonna feel so, like, dysregulated, like, you're going to feel unsafe, you're going to feel like you're not being
Thrown
valued.
into the ocean, no island with us, no life preserver, no nothing.
Yes. So I think that's also, like, a piece, we keep talking about why you need these and not talking about actually what these
Okay,
languages
yeah,
are.
let's get into it.
But, like, I feel like that's true, like, we're trying to do, like, one of those, like, cute little sandwiches where we, like, say why this is necessary, say what it is, and how you can use it.
100%. Okay, should we jump into kind of common conflict languages or conflict styles?
Wait, do you wanna know something? I am such a nerd, and I was reading all these articles, and, like, so some licensed professionals say there are 5 languages, some say there are 7, but there's a website where you could take a quiz. And so I took a quiz on it, and when Lily and I were talking about this on Wednesday when we were prepping, I was like, "Oh, I'm 1000% a people pleaser." And it, like the quiz pops up with, like, confetti and was like, "You are a people pleaser." And I was like, "Oh, thank you for saying it so nicely."
I still need to take the quiz. I have some ideas of where I would land, but I need to do it. We'll link the quiz too.
We'll put it in our show notes. But then when we were this morning, I got up and read my horoscope. Obviously, I am becoming an astrologer.
Yeah, as one does.
And my horoscope told me today that I need to say what I want and what I need out loud and don't cower away from the feelings of needing to please others. And I was like,
If that is not wrapping it up in a bow.
how beautiful is that? Like, thank you, universe, for reminding me.
Oh my god, that's
But
wild.
okay, so one of the first, we'll go through 5, I think narrowing it down and we can pull some in others. But the first one is avoidance or withdrawal. So typically, this looks like when you're in a fight, when someone, especially romantically, brings something up that might make you feel like alarm bells are going off and like conflict might arise. You say, I need space. In unhealthy situations, that might look like ghosting, shutting down, stonewalling. You typically become like fearful avoidant or anxious avoidant, going back to like those attachment styles. It can be mistaken, I think this is really interesting, as calmness. Like, it can be seen as, okay, like, this person's taking this so well.
Or like unbothered.
Yes, they're so bothered by this, and internally, they're, like, freaking out. They're trying to find the closest exit door. They're feeling attacked, and internally, they're dealing with that.
It's also I think with this one especially, it's like a regulation tactic that has potentially worked in the past, right?
Yes.
So it's kind of like, "Oh, okay, like, I'll like, okay, let me just sort of like." And you can oftentimes this is, I think, important too, talking about, like, listening to your body and picking up on body language and just, like, the somatics of everything of just, like, you can typically see when that person goes from, "Hey, I'll have a conversation with you, I'll interact," to Nope, we're done. I'm checking out, maybe some dissociation. And also, I think this idea of I need space, but not always verbalizing that. Sometimes the body can be the thing that signals I need space too.
Yes. Yeah, I thought this was really interesting thinking about, like, ghosting, especially in of the way our generation and millennials date and how ghosting has become such a prevalent theme, and having that context to be like, "Okay, maybe that person really just needed space," and, like, maybe it was conflict that pointed them in that direction, and that's how they're feeling safe right now instead of being like, "Wow, they're such a jerk because they ghosted me." Like, I don't know, I think it gives us a better lens of like, okay, there's more that than what meets the eye when it comes to people and how they feel.
When you're chatting with clients, when some of this stuff comes up, I know sometimes I go this route and sometimes I don't, but this idea of literally just being like, "Hey, I'm gonna need a couple of days." And the other person, oftentimes, that is a terrifying statement to hear, right? Because maybe that person, and we'll look at it, moving to the next one, would maybe be this like solution oriented, let's fix it, conflict is happening. I want to run towards a conversation. And as we've talked about with attachment styles, those two people are very common in connecting. And that's when conflict can become a lot. So, I guess a question before we kind of jump into explaining the fix it kind of conflict style. When you're talking with clients, what are some things that you can say or things that you can work through around getting to a point where you're really able to vocalize that space and maybe silence and a break is what is needed?
So, I typically recommend urge surfing. I love visualization, I love analogies, and my clients are probably, like, sick of me for it, but urge surfing allows this person to whatever that conflict is telling them, the urge to run away, the urge to ghost avoid, the urge to do all these things, ride that. Don't, like, feel like you have to fix everything in that moment, don't feel like you have to listen to it. Ride the urge, but don't act on it. Then you can actually take inventory, then those somatic practices come in hand, and you can be like, "What am I actually feeling right now? Am I feeling threatened? Am I feeling scared? Am I feeling overwhelmed? Am I feeling seen?" Because some people typically do the avoidance and withdrawal because when they're in conflict and they're being called out and seen, it's terrifying. So, riding that wave, allowing yourself to really feel the truth of what is causing the anxiety here, and then once that's kind of passed, vocalizing to me, especially again, we talk about how, like, the therapeutic space can model those healthy relationships outside. What would you wanna say to their significant other in that moment? What feels like a safe entry into the conversation that won't then allow the alarm bells to go off to them then want to run away from it?
And this can take work. This can take a lot of time too.
That's immediately, yeah.
Exactly. No, totally. But when talking about time and being patient and processing and all of that, that runs into an issue for the people that are solution oriented, fix it, let's do this. So, your initial, you see conflict, something feels right, you're kind of the alarm bells are happening and you're like, "Oh, need to jump into this. Let's save everything." Before, like you were just saying, before you're even really up to speed with how you're feeling. You're like, "I'm sensing this, so I'm just gonna jump to it." Before you've even recognized,
Both know how the other person is feeling.
before you recognize the emotions.
Yes, I see this so often with my couples is I will actively watch a fight happen in session, and I know that this therapist is crazy, like, what a crazy lady, she's sitting there watching us fight, not interrupting it, and a lot of times, I'm trying to evaluate and watch how the fight is playing out.
And the styles, conflict styles.
Yes, and then I can say, "Okay, blank, did you hear what blank actually said, or were you mentally preparing your rebuttal or your response? Because if so, this is gonna be pointless. Your fight is gonna go absolutely nowhere." And I feel like the fix it fast people they tend to be the ones who are practicing what they're gonna say while their partner is actually speaking.
Which is probably coming from this, "Oh my gosh, there's a possibility that we're disconnecting."
Yes.
Right? And there's this need to rush to it, put the Band-Aid on, because coming from either, like, codependent patterns or anxiety around it could potentially fall apart. Conflict is vulnerable because there's an opportunity for it to all unravel, and there's an opportunity for it to feel like you are alone.
Yes. And I would say typically this conflict language stems from not even necessarily wanting to it's called like the fix it fast thing because it's like putting a bullet over or putting a Band-Aid over a bullet hole. You're saying, "Can we just be okay? Like, I promise I'm not mad. Like, we just gotta quit fighting."
These to ease whose worries, not the other person's, to ease your worries, right? It's to ease your anxieties, it's to protect yourself. And then when you go in that mode, good luck conversing. You're not thinking about someone else.
Yes. And you're also not even addressing the issue. Typically, I also say this to a lot of my couples is the most effective form of couples counseling is when you and your partner come in against the problem. When you see your partner as the problem and you're coming in together as these like two like walls hitting each other, nothing is going to be solved. And so that typically comes out in the avoidance withdrawal being with the fix it fast because again, they're compatible in so many ways, but they also don't know how to communicate effectively their needs and their wants and listen to each other. I don't want to say this is the worst, the third one, but I would say it typically has the tendency to be the most unhealthy.
And difficult to get to the root of a problem. Mhm.
Yes.
And we have our blame and deflect.
Blame and deflect.
This is just an overall protective mechanism completely. There's also some probably can throw in some dissociation in there too, some suppression, all of that kind of stuff as well.
Yeah. I would say it was so funny when we were reading through these and we were like, "Oh, I'm this one. Oh, my mom is this one. Oh, my boyfriend's" like, we were, like, naming people and, like, everyone has a blame and deflect person in their life, and you've chopped it up to being like, "Oh, it's a personality trait. That's just how they are." And, like, there's always more to it, but this is the type of person who will use, like, sarcasm as armor or criticism of a person as armor, like, saying things of, like, "Oh, well, you know what, at least I didn't do this," when someone points out that you might have done to hurt them.
Projection.
Yeah, they're trying to protect themselves from, like, vulnerability or, like, being seen as the bad guy, and I've had clients say before, like, "I just don't wanna be the bad guy." Like, I don't wanna be seen as that, and a lot of times it's like, "Okay, well, why?" Like, what's the deeper meaning or message behind being the bad guy? Yeah. Blame and deflect. Oh, it's just so hard. Like, I feel like there's so much to this piece here.
I think there's also this piece again of I think this also comes from less so the relationship at hand and maybe even less so the conflict that is at hand, but oftentimes I feel like this stems from that more inner individual piece as well, that it feels very, 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 very vulnerable to get to this point because it's hitting and it's tapping and it's poking on something that potentially was years beyond or years before this relationship came to be or whatever, right? Like it hits something that feels almostly entirely different and not even related to the relationship or to the conflict, which I think makes it that much harder to get to the root of, to speak about all of that, because it's like, whoa, now I need to also get into this vulnerable place and let you in order to fix.
Yeah. You're talking about the root, and I think that this one's fully rooted in insecurity.
That's essentially, I think, what I was trying to get at. Yeah.
I think it's the sarcasm, the, like, testing someone. I mean, I feel like I've had so many girlfriends who have
Game playing.
yes, like, they're like, "Okay, I'm just gonna, like, test him here," or, like, "I'm gonna text this to see what his response is." Like, I'm not like I'm trying to pick a fight, but I'm trying to push someone to see if they'll come back. Like, and that's, I think, that insecurity piece.
And this is why I think for us, we're like, unhealthy, unhealthy, unhealthy.
Alarms are going off. Yeah. Yeah, I really do think it comes down to a lot of times and I would say more so women who have this language, this conflict language, it boils down to like a power imbalance or a power struggle. And I think it's like unknowing need to win. And so, like, by blaming someone else, they're in the wrong. That, like, it's them. They're the bad guy. I'm not the bad guy. And it's that imbalance. But that's the 3rd one. We all know her, but
We all know her. Okay, let's jump to the 4th, the freeze and fawn situation that we have going on. This gives a little bit people-pleasing energy, right? Apologizing, even when you maybe are feeling confused, hurt, strongly about something that you want to share. This can often be kind of a trauma response because, again, you're just trying to protect the peace, right? Like, it's easier to let it be. It's easier to apologize. It's better in that moment. It feels better to say, it's fine. I don't care. And then go home and be like, what the heck? I care. And suddenly you're sobbing, eating ice cream, being like, why didn't I say something?
yes, I think this is, you know, I'll say this. I fully feel this, and I was doing research on, like, how to work on this too, for me personally, because I think it, like, makes me think of, like, I was a pacifier kid, like, I loved passies, is what I called them, and I think it's like that sometimes you can use that as a way to, like, calm a baby, even if that's not necessarily what they need. Like, they might be hungry, they might need a diaper change, they might just be agitated, but you're like, "Okay, a pacifier will just give them that soothing for a minute," and that people pleasing, like, "I'm sorry, you're right, I'm wrong," like, instant to just, like,
In that moment, it's like, oh, I can breathe. Hmm.
yes, like, I don't have to deal with this, and I think that if this is you, and I'm also talking to myself, like, remembering that conflict isn't a bad thing, and working through the hard stuff is a way to deepen a connection, especially in romance. Like, if something is genuinely bothering you, like, it deserves to be brought up. You have just as much stake in the game as a partner, a friend, a coworker. Like, your opinion is just as much needed in the space as theirs is. Like, don't feel the need to pacify yourself.
Yeah, yeah, no, totally. But I mean, it makes sense though, too, because you can talking about like some limiting beliefs or some core beliefs and automatic thoughts that you like are like you're showing up in the space and you're like, oh, I'm gonna doubt, like, should I be saying this? Do I matter here? Like, let me doubt this, that, all the other, right? So it's easier, again, it's easier to, like, close that side of mind and stop all of those questions and maybe deal with them when you're out of the situation, right? And oftentimes these things still come up with this kind of the free, like, you're frozen and you have a quick reaction for a quick response, for a quick fix, right? And then they typically come back when you're removed from the situation and you're, like, kind of debriefing everything and you're like, "Hmm, okay, like, I did that again," right? But with that to be said, I think, and this is another reason why I think talking about these and sharing this is great and can provide some, again, like, kind of the groundwork for beginning early reflection, but is that, like, just because you notice that doesn't mean that your opportunity is completely gone, right? Like, if you're feeling something, then it maybe takes you a second. You can always, we say this with clients all the time, right? One, we say this with clients all the time, and two, I also hear my supervisor say this to us all the time as well, of just because you maybe didn't have the words to respond in that moment, and maybe it was hitting something that you didn't know if you wanted to talk about, you can absolutely circle back at the next session and be like, hey, actually, the way this happened last week, let's talk about it. This goes for therapists and for clients, right? Maybe I've had clients come in and be like, can we actually talk about how this conversation came about last week? And I've also come up and I've circled back and been like, I kind of was thinking about this on my run the other day. And like, I didn't know if you wanted to spend some more time here, right? Like, I just feel like oftentimes with the people pleasing tendency, it's like, once your window has evaporated and your window's gone, that it's completely over. And I think when talking about like gathering tools to kind of combat some of these things or poke holes in some of these conflict styles is, for me, that's something that's coming up in that, like, you're always allowed to go back even if it feels like it's been a while, because if you're still feeling those feelings, they want to get out. They're looking for every possibility to enter the conversation.
Yeah, I loved that. That's good. I needed that.
Okay, we're wrapping up with number 5, right?
And yeah,
Rupture and repair. I'm looking at the notes that we have for these. I'm feeling connected to it, but in a little bit of a different way.
Okay. Okay. I think that one rupture and repair conflict language typically dates a rupture and repair conflict language because it's two people who confuse often emotional intensity for chemistry. They're like, "Oh my god," like,
Lust, kind of, yeah.
plus, like, have you ever read, like, an enemies to lovers?
Yes, obviously. Yeah, those are the best. We're all bought in.
I would strongly disagree. I'm always like,
Oh, really?
"Oh my god, I hate this romance trope," because I'm like, "He was so mean to you, and now you're in love with him?" Like,
Oh, no. See, maybe I like these ones.
this is like the quick escalations, like, everything feels so intense, everything feels so bought in and dynamic, and it's typically a drama loop.
Almost love bomby maybe on the repair side.
Yes, it's like a loop that is mistaken for deep, deep love, and every time I read an enemies to lover, like, trope, I'm like, "You guys actually need some intense therapy."
Mhm, mhm.
But also that's, like, escalated for romance, like, that's not.
Totally. I guess what's coming up for me, and I know we chatted about this on Wednesday, but where is the, like I guess that's maybe the fix it fast, but, like, wanting to be blunt and just, like, "Let's do it." I guess that kinda falls in fix it fast, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Which, like, fix it fast doesn't always have to be, like, rolling over for someone else. I feel like that's more of the
It can be standing your ground and wanting to converse, yeah.
yeah. No, I feel like this is more of a I crave conflict,
Mhm.
like the fireworks.
Which now I'm kinda thinking to deflect, I think number 3 and number 5 could be the hard ones.
Yeah.
But then again, conflict's conflict. But as you said, conflict is not always awful and, like, catastrophic. Conflict is also always, right? Like, how do you respond? It's not the conflict, it's how you respond to conflict, right? Like, there's all of these sayings and kind of things, but I think it also ultimately provides an opportunity for connection and for further understanding.
And 2, I mean, I think that, again, I keep, like, emphasizing why this is so important for your 20s, just to, like, know these 5. And again, we'll drop all of these articles in our show notes because I also think it's important for you if you wanna read about the 7 differing from the 5, if some of those feel drawn to you, if you just wanna read some of these professionals who are developing these languages and trying to condense them, I think it's important. But I think that, like, specifically in your 20s, I think about Chicago, I think about living in a big city, like, you are dating usually outside of your knowns. So you're dating people with different backgrounds and baggage and boundaries and experiences. And typically we're like, oh, find out their love language. And yeah, but like what happens when conflict arises? Like, I think your nervous system is still learning and unlearning so many things, whether it's like the chaos of a high school or college romance or, like, family dynamics, you're typically in such a deeper introspective state in your 20s, and it feels chaotic to finally do that for the first time. I think that's even Sarah talking about you get to your 30s and you're like, "I'm still being introspective, but it doesn't feel as daunting." And so this is just, like, giving you the tools to start looking inward, to have that compassionate curiosity with yourself, and figure out what is and isn't working, and if you do have one of these conflict languages, doesn't mean you're broken or bad or that you're a bad fighter or a really good fighter. It just means learning how you fight so that you can communicate that with a partner to establish a deeper connection with them.
Totally. I completely agree. Did we get any responses on unhinged fights?
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Anything that we want to chat about before we wrap up?
Lily and I posted a TikTok this week and we were like, share your most unhinged, like, not crazy fight, but like, not just like, I feel like a typical fight that I think of when people are in relationships, like who gets to pick the restaurant or
Mhm. Yeah.
like, what are we eating tonight? Someone commented, and I thought this was so funny. My boyfriend is a middle school baseball coach. He and I fought over if there are lights by the field. I said that there has to be at least one. He said, I know there wasn't. So we went back and forth until I told him to leave and go home because I knew there was. He went to the field and there was a security light and I was right. Don't argue with an ADHD person because we notice every single detail. And so it wasn't even like a nasty fight. It was just like, I'm right. No, I'm right. No, you're wrong. No, you're wrong. Like they couldn't see from each other's perspectives. And I thought that was hilarious.
That's also this, like, innate idea that it's a competition and you want to win, right? Which is, I think, huge in conflict as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Where does that fall? Not that we need to put it in a box, but I kind of feel like maybe a little bit of fix it facts and blame and deflect? I don't know.
I think some of these overlap into each other too. And like you see, and like I would even say it's interesting to think I probably have a different conflict pattern with my family or like with my friends. Well, actually, I would say it's pretty similar with my friends where I'm like, no, I was in the wrong than it is.
Interesting. I think I get that, like, kind of like, let me puff my chest out a little bit with my family. I'm like, "Okay, like, let's go. Here we go," like which makes sense though because my family is very competitive. Like, we are in every which way possible, right? So, it's all interesting. It all ties back to something.
Well, interesting. Conflict is so funny to me because it's like inescapable. There's always going to be conflict. Like my parents who have been married for 30 years still fight about stupid things. I mean, that's part of being in a relationship. I think it's learning how to regulate yourself, learning more about yourself so that you can understand your partner. Like it's really hard to understand someone when you don't even know what role you're playing in the game.
Yep, and that is kind of, again, to throw in, like, the therapy component of it too, is that, like, doing the work on yourself just equips you to show up in other spaces a little bit more, like, prepared with the tools, level-headed, understanding, compassionate towards yourself, and the work is hard and the work is scary, but I think it's kind of like an investment in yourself too, you know?
Yeah. I think some cutie homework that we could give to our listeners is to deeply reflect and ask yourself this question. When conflict happens, do I lean in, shut down, perform, or explode? And then follow that and listen to or read some of these articles, listen to some of these other podcasts on this, and let us know your thoughts. As always, our emails are always open. Oh, and then next week, we'll have an exciting announcement about something Lee and I get to do for the podcast and share some news.
Yes, if you want to be in the loop, no steps behind, make sure you follow us on TikTok and we will be updating you there.
Okay, talk to you guys next week.